Good morning and welcome to the KAZERA Global PLC Investor Update presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors are being listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged. It can be submitted any time via the Q&A tab situated in the right-hand corner of your screen. Just click Q&A, scroll to the bottom, type your question and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question received during the meeting itself. However, the company review all questions submitted today. We'll publish responses where appropriate to do so. Before we begin, we'd like to submit the following poll. I'd now like to hand you over to Dennis Edmonds, CEO. Good morning.
Good morning, Paul. Thank you, and welcome to everybody who's joined us. I'm going to apologise to start with on the basis of this is a bit of a new experience for KAZERA and for me. Yeah, I think it's going to be very positive. It's part of our mission to engage more with our shareholders. So I'm looking forward to it and look forward to your questions. KAZERA is an investment company. It's focused on developing early-stage assets towards meaningful cash flow and resource realization. So a long sentence, but what we're focusing on is finding assets in which we think we can add value, adding that value, and then either keeping them and keeping the cash that's being generated by them or finding appropriate buyers for them. Either way, generating cash either by way of revenue or capital. The current assets include a diamond mine in South Africa, heavy mineral sands production opportunity in South Africa, and a tantalum producing operation in Namibia, which has lithium potential as well. Now, what I'll do is I'll go through each of those in more detail as we go through the slides. We're also in the process of acquiring a rare earths project in Kenya. That there is fairly early stages. We're still in the process of doing due diligence and finalizing legal documentation. And as a long-term focus, and what the company is trying to do is to leverage its unique board experience. We have a very good board, who I'll explain to you later. I'm supported by some really superb people. And our investment capability, operational efficiency to generate cash and to see growth for shareholder value. And as I say, cash will either be by way of revenue or by way of actual sales. The history of KAZERA the relevant history of KAZERA, I suppose, is that in January 2015, as Kennedy Ventures, it acquired 75% of what is our current platinum tantalum project in Tantalite Valley, Namibia. That's for £0.66 million. It changed its name in March 2018 to KAZERA Global, and one of the things that the board at the time did, I was not on the board then, which was, I think, very, very good for investors generally, was that it redefined itself as an investment company. That meant that in June 2020, it was able to acquire controlling stakes in Deep Blue Minerals, which is our diamond operation in Alexander Bay in South Africa, together with the heavy mineral sands opportunity in a subsidiary company called Whalehead Minerals, which is in exactly the same area, and I'll explain to you more detail about why they're in the same area when we get down to that slide. In June 2020, the balance of the tantalum project was acquired, so it meant that the company then owned 100% of the tantalum project. And then recently, you'll have probably seen an RNS in June of this year, where heads of terms were agreed for the acquisition of 71% of the rare earths project in Kenya. I'll go into each of those there in more detail. To start with, looking at location of our assets in Namibia and Southern Africa. To all intents and purposes, they're in the same place. If you look at the map, you can see where the Alexander Bay South African assets are in relation to the Namibian assets, which are just south of Warrenbot, which is just across the Orange River and the border between Namibia and South Africa. The distance from Cape Town to Alexander Bay is around 700-800 kilometers, depending on how you go there. And it's pretty much the same distance from Warrenbot up to Windhoek, which is the capital of Namibia. So it's a fairly difficult place to get to. It's fairly isolated, which has its own advantages and its own disadvantages. It means that it's difficult to get to. It takes time to get there. But the advantages are that there are communities there who don't have a lot of other opportunities. And it's a real opportunity to get involved with them, to get good labor, and to get a really loyal and strong labor force built up. And that's certainly what we've managed to do in South Africa, a big part of what we're trying to do at the moment in Namibia. So to turn to Namibia, in 2019, we had a JORC resource published, a combined tantalum and lithium resource of 104,000 tons indicated, 219,000 tons inferred. Tantalum 323 parts per million, lithium 4,410 parts per million. And then subsequent to that, there was a further report done on White City, which was not included in the first report, and that there was a further 297 tons of tantalum indicated at 105 parts per million. That study did not look at the lithium potential. The lithium was not a part of the focus of what was being looked at, and it was fairly general and fairly unfocused in terms of the deposit. The interesting part about the Tantalite Valley mine, or the big potential of the Tantalite Valley mine, is that we have only drilled approximately 1/3 of it. There is a considerable amount to still be drilled, obviously. There are a lot of pegmatites which still haven't been properly or even vaguely explored. So there's great opportunities there. There is an issue in that the plant itself is fairly old and it's now becoming more and more unreliable. But we have been working on the grades, because whilst the plant is never going to produce the volumes we were hoping for and are hoping for, the important part was to get to a situation where we could see grades that made sense, and we can export happily on 25% lithium as percentage of our 25% of our concentrate. That has led to us being able to put together a 1,000 kilogram batch of concentrate, which is currently in the process of being sent to China. So that is the first commercial batch of lithium produced by the mine. And the picture on the right there just shows the contrast between the lithium and the rest of the surrounding area. It's obviously much darker, and that's the focus, is getting the lithium out of the enormous amounts of silica in particular which surround it. One of the most encouraging parts about Namibia, and the most exciting thing that's happened in Namibia for quite some time, arguably one of the most exciting things within the company for quite some time, is the deal we announced last week, in which we have an investor who has invested $7.5 million American dollars for 49% of the lithium marketing company. Now, what we've done is we have separated out the marketing of the lithium from the mining of the lithium. So what is very important here is that the company retains full ownership of the lithium. It remains our asset, and we have complete control over how it is mined and the process generally. The 49% is paid for by $7.5 million, $2.5 million of which is in cash, and we've already received the first 100,000 of that. In fact, that it was actually received, it was sent to us a couple of days before it was due. So I think that's a very positive indication of where that relationship will go. There's a further $5 million, which will come in by way of machinery, equipment, and expertise. The important part about that is that the equipment, expertise, and machinery will all be agreed beforehand. So the value of it will be agreed, and the type and the nature of it will be agreed beforehand. So, for example, when it comes to a drilling and blasting campaign, we will get a quote from our new partner, and we will also get quotes from other people. And if our new partner's quote is the same or lower, that is obviously the one we will go with. If it's not, then we won't. So it's not the 5 million is a genuine 5 million of value into the company. What it means is that the plant can be upgraded, and that will, in a really short period of time, we think within the next couple of months, lead to proper volumes of tantalum being produced. We are looking at ultimately achieving, at this stage, 4,000 kilograms of concentrate per month to be exported. That there would be, put the tantalum production into substantial profitability, and it would give us an enormous amount of confidence going forward. So that's the focus very much at the moment, is getting tantalum into production. But also while that happens, and of course while we're drilling and blasting, we're also producing the same ore which contains lithium. And the intention there is to have the lithium side of the operation in full production by January next year. We do have tailings which contain a lot of lithium. So there is a stockpile waiting to be processed as soon as we have the appropriate systems in place. So it's really exciting in terms of lithium having been very much understated in Namibia, now suddenly has got a real meaning to us. And what it does is it means that the company will no longer need money from London. That happens immediately because of obviously the 2.5 million of cash coming into Namibia. It also, what it does is it provides us a justification for further exploration. We mentioned some time ago in an RNS EPL 7238, which is in the more northern part of Namibia, 3 hours away roughly from Windhoek. That EPL appears to contain both lithium and tantalum. It's not something we have explored up to date because of finances and the focus being in terms of getting what we've got working rather than spending money on things which are in addition to that and then forgetting about what we need to be focusing on. But now that we have cash and we've got a partner who is very interested in the lithium, that there certainly becomes something which now becomes relevant to our plans for the future. Turning then to South Africa, on the right I've given you a slightly more detailed map, and it indicates the size of the area. The mining area, which is owned by Alexcor, stretches from Alexander Bay in the north, which is just south of the Orange River, all the way down to Port Nolloth in the south. It goes both sides of the main road, which is the black line you can see there, and that is roughly a distance of about 90 kilometers. And operations are on both sides of the road, although at the moment our focus is very much on the left-hand side, the Atlantic Ocean side of the road. It's an alluvial diamond operation. It's under contract with the landowner, and the landowner itself is a joint venture between Alexcor and the Richtersveld community. The Richtersveld community represents the 5 small towns in the area who are indigenous local people. And again, as I say, employment is not easily available, so we can pick and choose, and we've managed to work with some really, really good people. We've got a fantastic team. The estimate at the moment, official estimates of diamonds available in that area, it's been extensively mined since 1928, but the projections are there's over 2 million carats of diamonds still to be mined there. How the contract that we have with Alexcor works is that we get a number of free areas allocated to us at a time. As we mine the diamonds, Alexcor we mine the gravels. Alexcor then processes those gravels, refines them down to the most diamond containing gravels. Those then get sorted, and then the diamonds get separated out, and Alexcor then handles the sale process. It's been a very difficult road for us for some time. Alexcor have had difficulties running their Maasvlakte plant. We have previously announced we took over the Maasvlakte plant for a period of time to try and make it work for Alexcor. We were successful in doing that, but various things intervened of a political nature, which meant that it became uneconomic for us and non-beneficial for us to continue to be involved. So what we've done instead of that is that we have, which meant that we haven't been able to produce diamonds. So we've been able to produce gravels. We have built up substantial gravel stockpiles, but we haven't been able to produce diamonds because of the Maasvlakte plant not running. And when we stopped running it, it stopped running. So what we've done is we have introduced the pan plant, and I've inserted a picture of the pan plant to the right. It is incredibly difficult to show you the scale. What I have done, though, is included in this picture, particularly, a couple of people standing next to the plant. scale is very difficult when you're trying to take a photograph in the desert or with the sea behind you. They are both so vast that any machinery looks ridiculous if you've got a photograph big enough to see the machinery, or from a far enough perspective. But here you can see it in relation to the people. It's a vast plant, 16 feet across, able to handle up to 70 tons per hour of gravel. We'll chew through our stockpiles. Why it's such a great deal for us, and one of which we're incredibly proud, is that it doesn't involve any cash outlay from KAZERA. The owner of the plant has put it on site. He has paid for the removal of bringing it to the site. He will also has provided, in fact, an operator of it. And what will happen with it is that we will pay him back as diamonds are sold. So there is no, we'll pay him only as we generate cash. And the interesting part about that is that what we're paying him is less than we were paying to Alexcor to process diamonds through the Maasvlakte plant. So it's a much better deal for us. We have complete control now over the initial production of our diamonds, so we can process the gravel all the way up to final sorting, which is, for obvious reasons of security, still carried out by Alexcor, and Alexcor still carry out the sales. But Alexcor have got a new CEO in place. He appears to be a genuinely good businessman, genuinely committed to making Alexcor work, and we are really, really positive about where the future lies there. Again, what this means is that because we can get our gravels and get diamonds through at the appropriate times, we will get them into the auctions, which Alexcor holds roughly every 6 weeks, which means once again, we have an operation which will no longer need any funding from KAZERA in London, which is where we'd hoped diamonds would be long ago, but weren't able to get to because of the issues of production. Now, because of the pan plant, that is no longer a problem, and that is exactly where we believe Deep Blue will be from now on. The big question then perhaps is why diamonds are so important to KAZERA's plans. We can make money out of diamonds, good money out of diamonds, probably around $30,000, $40,000 a month, but it is not the reason particularly for the diamonds. The reason for the diamonds is the heavy mineral sands. Heavy mineral sands exist in great density in a couple of areas in the Alexcor territory. I'm showing you a picture here on the right-hand side of literally a handful of sand scraped up off the beach. And you can see how almost tarry it looks. And that is because of the heavy mineral sands in it. I'll get on a little bit into the analysis of that in a moment, but the problem with mining heavy mineral sands in Alexcor's area is that you aren't allowed to do it unless you have a right to mine diamonds. Diamond miners don't want to touch heavy mineral sands because the cost of production is just so high, because obviously the heavy mineral sands themselves are very difficult to separate out from the diamonds. What we have done is to combine the two. So we have an application for a mining permit, which I will go into in a moment, together with the contract to mine diamonds. And we believe that there will give us a fantastic opportunity to both mine diamonds and heavy mineral sands, and to cover the costs of the diamond mining, which are fairly high, by the much better profits to be generated by the heavy mineral sands. The heavy mineral sands permit areas we've applied for is a relatively small area. It's only 5 hectares. We had a feasibility study done in 2020. That there shows that we have 3.11 million tons of heavy mineral sands at a grade of 62.1%. Predominantly garnet, which is 30.29%, ilmenite, which is 27.54%. There is a small amount of rutile and zircon, but they weren't included in the valuation. It's interesting because Torman's original area of operations, Torman are a listed company, the Australian listed company based down the coast from us on the west coast of South Africa, also mining heavy mineral sands, and their initial resource was of 2.7 million tons. To date, which is about 9 years, I think, later, they have mined 9.7 million tons. And the reason for that isn't that they got the initial assessment wrong. The reason for that is wave action. What happens is that as the sands are mined, a gap is left on the coast, and wave action redeposits further heavy mineral sands in those areas. So it's a self-replenishing asset in lots of ways. It also means that rehabilitation is a very straightforward process. The MPV given to our operation on that small 5 hectares was at a 20% discount, was $223 million, which is a substantial amount of money. And again, I don't, possibly because we haven't yet got the mining permit, but when we get that mining permit, it's got a major implication in terms of the value of the company. Our target there will be to be producing 6,000 tons per month of heavy mineral sands, which will generate substantial profits in the vicinity of around $300,000 a month. We've also applied for a prospecting right over an adjacent beach, which is called Powderflame. That's about 34 times bigger than Wolfers Corp, and that there is also in the process. So we do have already got the application filed. Where we are from a legal perspective, though, is the big issue here. Our mining permit was granted subject to appeal against the decision, and an appeal was received from Alexcor, interestingly. We have spent a lot of time with our consultants have responded to that appeal. We don't believe there is any validity in it. We also believe that the Department of Mining has done the job that it's supposed to do, which is an extensive job in making sure that all environmental and other aspects are taken into account before they give us initial approval. So when they've given us initial approval and initially outlined granting of the permit, they've done it after extensive work. And we don't believe that this appeal has any merit. But we are awaiting the results of that shortly. So when that there does happen, and provided obviously that it's positive, it will be fantastic news for the company. And not only for the company, but also for Alexcor, because they'll be able to access diamonds they were never able to access before. And also for the local community. There are a number of jobs that can be generated out of what's happening here. The next step in terms of the heavy mineral sands is, sorry, I'm going back one slide too far here. The next step in terms of the heavy mineral sands is to install a plant to separate out the various elements. We have been in discussions with a number of parties. We've indicated a willingness to do that. Indication of the type of deal. Somebody putting in a plant to process around 20,000 tons a month. That there will mean that it will be enormously beneficiated, probably increase our share of the profit by about 5 times. But what it will do is we'll probably get 40% of that. They will get 60%, is the type of discussion that we're having at the moment. So it means that we'll be able to greatly improve the profitability of the heavy mineral sands, but at the same time, it's not going to cost us money to do it. Right, then, moving on to Kenya. We have announced that we have agreed terms to purchase 71% of a company with 3 exploration licenses in Kenya. The picture on the right shows you Kenya, and it shows you where the project area is up in the top left-hand corner. And the picture on the left gives you that whole picture in a little bit more detail. As you can see, there are good road links, good rail links, and you can also see that there is a fairly big town in not too distant from the area of operation. Buru Hill is the area which we are focusing on initially, and that there is, if you go down the main road from Kisumu, follow the red road, and you can see Buru Hills is pretty much just on the road there. And you can also see there are other towns in the Nairobi area. So it's yeah, very well located. Kenya, of course, is a good jurisdiction to be working in any terms. The consideration for this deal is £750,000 payable purely in KAZERA shares. The first tranche of 250,000 will be paid on completion. The second at a price of 1.5p per share. The second tranche will be a further 250,000 at 2.5p per share, and that will be payable on production of the feasibility study. And the third tranche of 250,000, also at 2.5p, will be paid when we go into production. As I said, the focus is on Buru Hills. Buru Hills is 13 square kilometers out of a total area covered by the 3 licenses of 346 square kilometers. So it's a fairly small area, but it's had extensive work done on it. And because of the extensive work done on it, we are going to focus on that there initially. We're going to, our intention over the next 6 months is to get a JORC resource done on the assets at Buru Hills. The JORC exploration target on Buru Hills is 27 million tons at 1.89% rare earths. An informal valuation was done in 2011 by IGV at $3.3 billion for Buru Hills. So there is, there's again an enormous amount of upside here. The picture shows you the hill and how it outcrops. And I've not yet been to Kenya to have a look at it, but it will be part of my due diligence process. But from that, you can see how easy it is to identify where these outcrops occur. So this could be worth an enormous amount of money to the company in the future. Right, now, how does it all happen? I said to you that I was supported by a fantastic team of people. We've had some recent board changes, and Gerard Kisby-Green has come on as our non-executive chairman. Gerard is absolutely perfect for, I think, what we are trying to achieve in the future. He is based in South Africa. He's a mining engineer. He's worked extensively on mines. He's worked extensively in investment banking. You can read the details there, but you know, he's based in South Africa, so in Cape Town. So he ticks so many different boxes and adds a whole different set of skills. We then have Jeff Ayer. Jeff, as you can see from his CV there, has got a lot of good financial background in resources. He, in the short period of time he's been there, has indicated a great amount of enthusiasm, in wish to get more involved in what we're doing. And again, I think will be a real asset in the months and years to come. And then finally, we've got Odilon Lunga, who is based in Namibia. Odilon is a metallurgist. He has worked on a number of mines, got a lot of practical experience, and brings a completely different element to the skills on the board. But between the four of us, we have a really, really good team there. So I'm very, very pleased with how that looks and how it bodes well for the future. Turning into just a summary, in terms of why I think this is such a great company, why I'm so proud to be involved in it. Firstly, I think it's considerably undervalued. The lithium deal alone values the company at 15 million, which is greatly in excess of our current market cap. And you got to remember that our market cap and everything up to date in terms of the company has always been based on tantalum, to a certain extent diamonds, and heavy mineral sands. The lithium comes out of left field to a large extent in terms of the market, and yet it's at a value higher than the market cap. The other really major thing and a really, really big part of our company is this new investment we've got. It means the production of tantalum will increase substantially within 2 months. It will get to a stage where we're producing proper profits out of the sale of tantalum. We'll be doing exactly the same with lithium in the first quarter of 2023. As an added bonus, essentially, we expect to be able to publish a further MRE in terms of what we have in Tantalite Valley within the next month or two. And then we've got further tantalum and lithium projects to be explored. As I mentioned, in Ois, we have an EPL up there where we have a joint venture which will enable us to explore further assets. And I guess the most important point about this is that the investment means that Tantalite Valley needs no further cash from KAZERA in London. The diamond operation has now become largely independent of third parties. So that means that, again, ICTA won't require cash flow assistance from London, which is again, an awesome position to be in. We are awaiting the heavy mineral sands mining permits imminently. When that happens, it will, I believe, have a major impact on our share price. And then we have Bury Hills. We'll complete the due diligence on that within the next couple of weeks, hopefully. We are as soon as we've managed to do the due diligence. And then we expect JORC resource within 6 months, which will again substantially upgrade that asset. So the enormous number of things which are in the company and which are really, really positive. That's it. Thank you very much.
Dennis, thank you very much indeed for the presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, do please continue to submit your questions using the Q&A tab situated in the right-hand corner of your screen. But just while Dennis takes a few moments to review those questions submitted today, I'd like to remind you that recording the presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your investor dashboard. Dennis, obviously, we've had a number of questions that have come through during the event. We also did have several pre-submitted questions. So if I may, perhaps I could start with a few of those. The first one reads as follows, and I think you have covered most of this off in the presentation, but if there's anything further to add, you've said KAZERA is in the process of applying for the prospecting right over for HMS over an adjacent beach appearing to share similar characteristics of Valviscop, approximately 34 times larger. That was in September 21. Has there been any progress on this? Is this pending the Valviscop decision? If so, will the pathway of this prospecting license also be substantially cleared when the Valviscop gets the go-ahead?
Yes, the two are fairly interlinked, or very interlinked. So when we get the heavy mineral sands permit granted, we will also be able to proceed with the exploration license. The problem that we have at the moment with the exploration prospecting license is that that's being held up because the Department of Mines is not going to make a decision on that until it's satisfied that the mining permit application has been done properly. So the two are definitely interlinked.
Fantastic, thank you. The next question we've got here is the Namibian company investing in the lithium opportunity linked to early indications of a prospective investment from a Namibian investor? I ask particularly because it was previously said that potential investor believes that KAZERA represents a strong candidate to consolidate further mineral licenses across Namibia and across the border in South Africa.
It's a very good question, and no. There's the answer. They are really good at the people we've got now are very involved in crushing and mining operations in Namibia. They already have extensive equipment in Namibia, and so they become a very good partner for us on the basis that they can quickly bring equipment and expertise onto site. The previous investors were both pure investors, and this is a very different situation. It has nothing to do with them.
Thank you. Next one we've got here. I realise things are moving at a pace right now, but at the time of writing this question, the company has two corporate Twitter accounts, at KAZERA PLC, which has not been maintained since 2020, whereas KAZERA G has been newly launched and carries all the exciting recent progress. Big thumbs up on the new Twitter page, but clearly it's confusing. Could you give some comments on that, please?
Thank you for the thumbs up. In regard to the confusion, you're absolutely right. The issue we have is that the previous account was being managed in Namibia, and I have been unable to date to get access to the password, and not because anybody's trying to be difficult, but simply because nobody knows where it is and who's got it. So that was the reason for us setting up the fresh account, and we're now in the process of removing the old one. Hopefully, it will give people a bit more clarity and people can find where they want to go and not get confused. But it's a very good point, and we are addressing it.
Super, thank you. Next one we've got here. In December 2020, the company announced an MOU with Manchef Mining and Energy, the holder of several exploration licenses in central and northwest sections of Namibia, where KAZERA has granted the exclusive right to evaluate 4 other licenses, offering the prospect of partnering with Manchef should any license be just have the necessary potential. Was the evaluation completed, or is this ongoing?
No, it's very much ongoing. It's been put on hold initially. As I said in the presentation, my focus has been very much on trying to get this company into cash flow positivity. Once we've done that, I think we can start to play around with other things. The change now, of course, is that with this investment into the lithium project, or the creation of the lithium project almost, the opportunity that is represented by exploration in an area which has got lithium starts to make much more sense. So that's certainly something that will be on our radar now.
That's great. And the final pre-submitted question we have here: transparency was certainly not one of the strong points of the previous management team. With this new management team, can you provide assurances that transparency will be at the forefront of future RNSs? Shareholders deserve to know how much income the company is making. How else can the market take our company seriously if that transparency is not there? What way has the company correctly going to be valued if we don't see this coming through? Could you just give some comment on that, please?
I think that is a very fair comment about transparency in the past. One of the reasons for today's meeting with you shareholders is that I'm hoping to address that. We always are in a difficult position in terms of trying to balance, in the case of Namibia, the requirements of the contract, which has got fairly strong confidentiality clauses in it, together with our obligation to keep the market informed and our desire to keep shareholders informed. But hopefully we'll be able to do a lot more of that there going forward. In South Africa, our issue has been slightly, we have been negotiating some interesting political wrappers, and obviously sometimes things are happening behind the scenes which would be very much compromised by being too open. But our goal very much is to be much more open with our shareholders and to engage much more with you and to try and answer your questions, to try and keep you informed.
That's fantastic. That concludes the pre-submitted questions. If I may, Dennis, just ask you just to click on that Q&A tab and just start at the top, where appropriate to do so. If you could just read out the question and give your response, even who it's from, that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Sure. Michael H. has just asked whether, and I think he's probably puts a question which a lot of investors would share. As an investor, I'd like to see regular updates and timescales kept. Are you going to be giving monthly as well as quarterly reports? And yeah, I think, Michael, the answer there is we are going to do our very best to engage a hell of a lot more with our shareholders than we have before. We will be giving reports, but yeah, I like to give reports when there is news rather than, particularly as things have been. I think as it goes forward now, because we're going to be in production on tantalum, lithium, and heavy mineral sands, not heavy mineral diamonds, possibly heavy mineral sands in the near future. There's definitely monthly reports there will become a lot more. We might well do them quarterly. It rather depend on how much news there is at the time, but we'll definitely be doing that. Christopher Ells asked a number of questions, but one of them is, please share the NPV assessments of the various projects. Christopher, I think what I've done is I've shared what I can share up to now in terms of we have the JORC resource for Tantalite Valley. I think there's a lot more to come there. So then that there is a constantly changing situation. So that will be upgraded. As I say, we have got assays that we're waiting for at the moment, and there will be a fresh mineral resource estimate coming out. In terms of the lithium, it is very early stages. Lithium, as I said before, has not been on our radar, so it's something that we're very much in the process of working on right now. And again, that will be part of the new MRE which comes out. We have got an MPV in terms of the heavy mineral sands. There is an MPV in terms of diamonds from a long time ago, but the diamond operation is somewhat changed, and it will change more as we move into processing heavy mineral sands. But the NPV on the heavy mineral sand project was 150 million pounds, excess of, and the NPV arguably, although it's not a official report yet, in 2011 on the project in Buru Hills is 3.1 billion pounds, dollars. So we're working on some substantial assets. Christoph also asked, what is the current status of commissioning of each of the projects? I think we've gone through that. The only thing I'm waiting for at the moment is on the entitlement value. We're applying for an the extension of our current mining license to include lithium, because it's not currently included, but it's pretty much a formality. We've got the mining rights over the area already. In regard to Alexcor, maybe I can deal with your next question, which is why has Alexcor appealed against the granting? Do they benefit from the grant? Alexcor, the person who appealed, the person who signed it on behalf of Alexcor was the CEO at the time. He resigned from Alexcor He left Alexcor 3 days later to pursue other things. So whether that was Alexcor or an individual, I don't really know. But certainly the new CEO is very much aware of the value to Alexcor of seeing the diamonds. Colin asked, can you explain the disconnect between the current market cap and the inherent value of the company at this stage? Colin, I can't. I think it is an unbelievably good investment right now. It's got so much unrecognized potential and so much unrecognized assets which have already come into existence. You know, with the heavy mineral sands, I accept we're still waiting for the mining permit, so that's a little bit up in the air. But things like the lithium, things like the tantalum, things like the diamonds are there. You know, they're very much there. But up in the air, you've then got, and they've got great value. As I say, the value of the lithium deal values the lithium alone at more than the current market cap. And then if you take into account the upsides from the heavy mineral sands or from the Buru Hills project, it's considerably undervalued. Richard J. asks, what are your plans for distribution of cash to shareholders further down the line, if and when you get to a value capitalization event? Our goal for the company would be to see the company generating cash from its operations. If we then make a disposal, it would need to be on the basis that, ideally, it would be on the basis that we've got cash coming in from another resource, and that we will then, when we make a disposal, it doesn't affect the fact that we're generating cash. So the company can continue paying for itself out of its own cash flow. What would then happen would be that any cash generated will either be going back to shareholders, which is the most likely scenario, or it might well be used for a further acquisition. But unless we actually had an acquisition lined up, it would be going back to shareholders. I'd prefer to be going back to shareholders to raise more money for something specific and getting their buy-in to doing that deal than I would be to sitting on a pot of cash on the basis of, well, we'll use it whenever we feel like it, sort of thing, for whatever we feel like. Ian N has asked, what was the reason given by the objector to the HMS license application? Yeah, I think from a political perspective, I'll probably leave that, excepting to say that they were what we believe pretty spurious grounds, lack of consultation with the local community, etc., which were pretty easily answered by our consultants. The rare earth deal, when does it close? It closes when we finish due diligence, I'm afraid. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks. But we are waiting for some issues around entitlement to licenses. So that's where the holdup is at the moment. Harvey D asks, how will the price of lithium sold be determined? Will it be at market price? Harvey, the answer is that we retain 51% of that company. So everything will be at market price. And that just goes back, of course, to the machinery and equipment being provided by our new investor. That will also be at market price. Nothing will be done. Nothing is going to be imposed on us. We're not doing some sort of sweetheart deal on the sale of the lithium, and we're not doing a sweetheart deal in terms of the purchase of any equipment. So yeah, that's where we get. I think that's all the questions that we probably have time for right now. I think probably covered most of them as well.
Dennis, thank you very much indeed. And of course, if there are any further questions that come through, Dennis have the opportunity to review those, and we'll publish those back out on the Investor Meet Company platform. If I may, Dennis, just before redirecting investors to provide you with that feedback, could I just ask you just for a few closing comments, please?
I think the closing comments are really well summarized by the questions. It's a company which has got a number of assets, which is considerably undervalued. It is going to be a very different company in terms of shareholder engagement. And the intention would be for it to be generating its cash out of its own operations and to be returning cash to shareholders out of the sale of different assets as we get them to a position where a good deal is feasible. It's I think a fantastic company to be involved in. I'm very, very pleased to be the CEO.
Dennis, thank you very much indeed for updating investors today. Can I please ask investors not to close the session? It should be automatically redirected to provide your feedback in order that Dennis and the team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete and is greatly valued by the company. On behalf of Dennis and the team at KAZERA Global PLC, we'd like to thank you very much for attending today's presentation. That concludes today's session. Thank you.